Hey everyone, it's Irene here, Irene Lyon. Welcome to this live stream. Welcome to this video. And while I wait for folks to get on, I am doing this live, so you might be watching the recording. And just so you know, right now I'm going to take some questions that were submitted via email because this week, so this is very time sensitive, on the 16th and 17th of March, this is 2022, we are putting our 21-day nervous system tune-up course on sale. We usually just do this twice a year, once during Cyber Monday, which is November, late November, and then once after we close registration for Smart Body, Smart Mind, which is my 12-week nervous system rewire program that we run once a year. So I'm going to get into these questions and just let you know that if you are new here, welcome. Obviously on this YouTube channel, if you're on YouTube watching this, there are hundreds of videos and Q&A calls and special topic lectures and interviews, guest interviews. And also, in addition to all this learning and educational content, I have a website. And that website is just my name, irenelyon.com. And there you can read more about me, my credentials, which are very important when you want to work, when you're about to work with or take an education from anyone within the healing trauma, nervous system world. So be sure to check out all of that. It's on my About page. And then we have so many resources, and we also have 2 programs. So I'm going to answer questions as they relate today. So you can pop in a question into the chat. I'm going to answer questions as they relate to my 21-day course. Again, this is a self-study course that basically is available all year round, but we're doing a sale this week. It's $100 off, $100 off the price of $297. So it's $197 tomorrow and Thursday, the 16th and the 17th. I think the 17th is St. Patrick's Day, isn't it? That sounds like, that rings a bell. So I think all systems are a go here. And let me know where you are. Let me know if you're an alumni. Let me know if you're new here. Let me know what you're interested in, what your questions are. The one thing that is very clear to me at this moment in time is this work is like an essential. It's essential that we get into this and learn about our physiology, learn about how we connect to the environment and how the environment impacts us. And for many of us, and I'm generalizing here, a lot of our old stuff, a lot of the old stresses, bad, scary things that occurred to us, abuses, misattunements, just all the things, they stay in our body until we actively work with them at this somatic and nervous system level. And I cannot stress that enough. I think it's becoming pretty common knowledge that while cognitive behavioral therapy, which is talk therapy, is very useful for many, many people and is a wonderful entry point into working with the human system, it does not get into the cellular makeup of how our imprints, how we were wired at this nervous system level. It does not get into working with sensations and stored fight, flight, freeze responses that are what puts our system into dysregulation. And it's also what puts our system into the chronic issues, physical, mental, relational, that we so often live with and have as a culture, as a world. So the nervous system stuff is key. You're not going to see it going away. You're going to see it popping up, I think, more and more in your feeds, in the news, in all sorts of ways. And I will say this, it is not something that can be biohacked. It's not something that can be fixed quickly. It's not like you have a broken bone, you go to the hospital, you get it mended, you do a bit of rehab, and then it's done. Very different, this work. And it's because if you think about us humans, when we are born into the world, it takes years and years and years for us to learn how to self-regulate, how to talk, how to walk, how to be dexterous with our hands and connect and have emotional maturity, sexual maturity, all these things. So when we work on ourselves as adults, and I hope you all take on this task of working on yourself as an adult with awareness and conscious decision that this is what I want to do. I want to change my patterns. I want to change my history. I want to change the ancestral traumas that I was given to me by my parents, the state of the world, all of it. When we work with this, it takes time, but it puts us into a situation where we are actually living in the way we are supposed to live, in my opinion. And my students, thousands around the world, so far we've had people from over 90 countries go through these programs and courses. They attest to the fact that when they are more in tune with themselves and they know how to regulate their nervous system and they've worked learning this, while there might be things that they see that are stressful and they might have traumas that occur to them, they know how to bounce back. And that is the key. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in and just see who's in the chat and have a little sip of my coffee. There is no code. So we're doing this a little differently this year because I want to give you guys lots of time so that you don't miss the sale, which is tomorrow. Or if you're watching this on the 16th or the 17th of March, 2022, it's now. So there's no code. What's going to happen is if you do go to the 21-day site right now, you'll see that it's priced at $297. Tomorrow, it's just going to magically change and it'll be $197. There will not be a 3-pay. It'll just be a 1-pay. And I'll go over a little bit about what you get in a second. I'm just going to see who is here. Thanks, Diana, for popping that in. I've got my fairy in the background putting in links here. Diana, thank you. Hello from Colorado. Hello from South Africa. Hey, Steffi. Hey, you got on live. So Lil Miss Laura Lee asks, are the 9 neurosensory exercises that come with the 21-day course different from the 3 that are currently on your site? 100%. Yeah, so great question. So that'll lead me into some ways that you can start learning with me. So on my website, if you are somewhere where you have the ability to open up another browser, I know if you're on your phone, you probably can't do this. Open up my site. And when you go there, you'll see all the things. You'll see programs at the top, courses. On the side, there are these little, it's common now on websites, these 3 little lines. You click on that. There's a big drop-down menu. There you will find resources that we call them our stellar free resources. And there you'll find ebooks that are wonderful. So they're written by me, topics that are very important and foundational. And then you'll see audio samplers. So those audio samplers, I think there's about 4 of them right now, maybe 3, I keep forgetting. They are just little guided tours of your nervous system health. Connecting with the environment, connecting with the ground, learning how to orient at a very basic level. Those are there for you to enjoy free of charge. The course, the 21-day course, is all its own content. Now, this will lead me to explain that the 21-day nervous system tune-up course was curated from Smart Body, Smart Mind. So what that means is in my inception of bringing this work online, which was back in 2015-ish, 14, we've been doing this for a while, guys. I could say that I think that I was probably one of the first people to bring somatic trauma healing work into an online format, teaching people how to learn about their systems so that they can do their own work on themselves. Now, of course, this doesn't replace working with the practitioner. If you know you need specific fine-tune work around something specific, and a lot can be done when you learn, when you get the theory on board and you start learning the practices of the basics of the nervous system. So the 21 days was designed after I created the 12-week program so that if you found me in this work throughout the year when we weren't enrolling people into our live session of Smart Body, Smart Mind, you could start. And so there are 9 neurosensory exercises, which are my kind of signature way of bringing you into the nervous system. It's a blend of my training in somatic experiencing, which is the work of Peter Levine, which is kind of the gold standard, if you will, I can say that confidently, of somatic trauma healing work. And again, SE is not a technique. It's not a quick fix. It is a way of relating with the human physiology, its sensations, its behaviors, its movements, all of it. The other thing that forms my neurosensory exercises would be somatic practice. This is the work of Kathy Kane. Kathy is a colleague of mine and Peter's. She studied with Peter as I did, and then similar to how I'm creating my own work, she has created her own work. And that work is blended with deeper elements of early trauma, developmental trauma. And then the other thing that is within my neurosensory exercises is my first mind-body kind of profession, which was or is the Feldenkrais method. So the work of Dr. Moshe, he's now passed, Feldenkrais, and he was really the first we call neuroplastician. So Dr. Feldenkrais understood, I think, more about the human nervous system and how it functions in the 40s and 50s than many people know now. He was a pioneer. He was a genius. He was kind of like an Einstein. He was a nuclear physicist. He was an engineer, electrical, mechanical. He was the first man in Europe to get a black belt in judo. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because that work is pivotal to how I teach these neurosensory exercises. It's not meditation. It's not mindfulness. It is a very deep dive into how you connect with your internal physiology, how you use your attention and intention, and how you connect with the environment while listening to the insides and back and forth. It's a very organic process. It's really how, from what I see, humans are meant to live. It's what we don't get because of our society, our conditioning, our culture, our rules, our regulations, all the things that take us out of our natural organic sense, our innate knowledge, basically. So that was a very long way of saying the 21-day nervous system tune-up, which is my 21-day self-study starter course, is content that forms through those methodologies. There's less of the somatic practice in the 21 days because it is going deeper into early trauma and developmental trauma. That work is more suited to Smart Body, Smart Mind. And just so there's no confusion, even when we're in Smart Body, Smart Mind, we spend about 4 weeks laying foundations as you do in the 21 days. So we always have to start with the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s and sentence structure. If I use the example of learning a second language as an adult, when you're relearning or maybe learning for the first time how to regulate and be with your nervous system and your somatic physiology, it's like a foreign language. And so it takes time. All right, let me have a little more to drink here. All right. Someone just asked, I wish you could talk more about discipline, because at the root of doing this work is having discipline. It is to a certain degree, and it's also about following impulse. And we could use the word discipline. We could say self-initiative. We could say taking care of ourselves. You know, I think sometimes we overcomplicate things. If someone brushes their teeth every day, if they clean themselves, they cook a little bit, they take care of their environment a little bit, there is some discipline in that. There is a routine in that. And so I like to sort of say this work is more about a routine. It's more about not being so much excited about it, but just being, this is what I have to do. This is what I need to do. Just like eating, drinking, sleeping, brushing our teeth, keeping our bodies clean, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Lauralee, I already answered your question, but just to repeat again, the neurosensory exercises in the 21 days are not in my free content. All the paid work that is there is there for the course. So hopefully that answers that question. All right, I'm going to go to one more chat here. Yeah, Savannah says it's more about creating a new lifestyle. It is about creating a new lifestyle, and it's about, as I just said, learning a new language. So this language is very specific to our somatic sensations, learning how to notice our physiology, you know, those fight, flight, freeze responses, learning how to reconnect with the environment. I think that is one of the things that's missing from what I see in a lot of classic therapeutic processes and even mind-body processes, believe it or not. This ability to stay with our physiology in addition to at the same time connecting to the environment. Typically, we're good at learning just how to be internal or just how to be external, but we have to have both. If we don't have both, then what happens is you go out into the day and something stressful occurs, or you get into a bit of trouble, or you get into a dangerous situation. And often that can be because there is a lack of connection to the internal and the external. So our perception of safety is not turned on. And if we're only practicing in the comfort of our own home with one aspect of our physiology, it's not enough because we're not just one aspect. Sarah Lynn Sun writes, I'm in somatic therapy for PTSD, and I also found your videos and work so helpful. Unfortunately, I feel conceptually I get it, but it's hard putting into practice. I have dysautonomia and arrhythmias. So if you found my videos, and that's wonderful. And I guess the question I'll put, because I think a lot of people fall into this boat. A lot of people think that my videos on YouTube are my work. It's a part of my work. It's an educational piece, but my work is in the programs and courses and classes that I teach. Those are paid. So ethically, standard of practice, scope of practice, I cannot teach you in this format everything to do, just like a physician or a doctor can't teach you over YouTube, well, I hope not, how to do a surgery. So I get it when it's hard to conceptually wrap your head around it. And even our alumni will say, until you're in it and you're experiencing it, it's very hard to put words to it. And the reason why is our human experience is not best described with language. It's best described as a felt sense and as a holographic entity, which basically means feeling and knowing all that's going on inside and the connection with the environment at the same time. And so part of this work is can be a little confusing at first because it's not a language that many of us know. So to teach it from a theoretical and a practical point of view is like this reverse engineering. And here's the thing, I said it again, I said it before, we should have, and I say this with air quotes, we should have gotten this when we were young. As human mammals, as human beings, right? We've got this mammalian physiology, but we also have this higher brain that we still don't really know where it came from. And it's very complex. And humans need very, very delicate care when they're young, not coddling and helicopter parenting care. They need the safety and the connection and the containment and the attunement and literally the doting at the first part of the life of the human so that they learn self-regulation through interaction with the caregivers. And then as they get a little older, they have to experiment a bit. They have to explore. They have to go out into the world. They have to be given the opportunity to make mistakes. And then eventually they have to learn right from wrong. This is where healthy shame comes in. If you haven't watched any of my videos on healthy shame, super important, especially for those of us here who are struggling with chronic illness, because usually it's weaved in to our physiology, this concept of being in toxic shame. And that's a lot about our upbringing. I won't get into that now. But again, this development of the human is so complex. And because no one can agree on how it should be, because in my opinion, and those within our field, we will say this is exactly how a human being should be raised. Just like an animal in the wild, we would never tell a mama bear to not raise her cubs in the way she does. She knows exactly how to do it. Humans are the same way, but then we have this added complexity of our creative brain, our higher brain, that needs a little more fine tuning, right? There's a reason why that bear cub in the wild doesn't have to go to bear school. They just learn through modeling and through what the mother offers, and then they're off and they know exactly what to do. It is innate in their bodies what to do. And so if we're not getting the proper nurture growing up, we are going to be an adult having no clue what to do. No discipline, as someone said here, no ability to self-direct, to initiate, to self-soothe. We're going to trap all of the fight, flight, and freeze responses in our system, and they're going to stay inside. And this is what creates chronic illness, mental illness, all these things that I keep talking about. And so I kind of went on a bit of a tangent there, but it's one of these things that until you land and really drop and go, oh, I think I get that, it's hard for me to verbally convey the type of work that is done within these programs. It is like you are learning how to be a human in the way that I believe and many of my colleagues believe should happen. I know that's a really bold statement, but I've seen enough people go through this work and be completely revolutionized and go, why haven't I known this sooner? And there can be some grief in that process. There can be some pain, emotional pain and physical pain that we might feel because we've trapped it all inside, but often emotional pain, grief that we didn't get what that little baby bear got, that cub, for example, right? All right, I'm going to get into 2 questions that were sent to support. I'm going to have a little more water here. And then I will get back into the chat. And for those of you coming on, I'm doing this Q&A, this impromptu Q&A, because we have a sale coming up for the 21-day nervous system tune-up course. This is my other online offering, the secondary offering to Smart Body, Smart Mind. So if you didn't get into Smart Body, Smart Mind this year, this is what you want to start with and just perfect it over the year, and then join SBSM next year in 2023. All right, so this question is from Natalie. So the question is, will the 21-day course provide me with the exercises that can help me do some deep healing? 100%. What I'll say is, depending on your history, you may need to go a little further. Is that the right word? A little further with, I always get further and farther confused. You will need to go a little further if you know that your history, your physiology needs more early developmental trauma work, which I'll get into as I read the next part of your question, because that level, that deeper level, takes time and it's embedded in Smart Body, Smart Mind. But starting with the 21 days gives you the foundation. And we actually did a wonderful, I did an interview with one of our 21-day students. Her name is Elizabeth. There's 2 videos actually that we can pop up. One is where I'm reading a letter that she wrote to us to tell us, I think it was last summer, what has transpired and what has healed deeply from her starting the course, not this past September, but the September before, the fall before. And that story is pretty incredible. And then we do an interview where I talk to her and she explains exactly what occurred by going through the curriculum. Now, of course, what you'll hear from, her name is Elizabeth, is that she did the work. She put in the work and she realized, I have to be disciplined. I have to be routine. This is just my world. Of course, she also had an environment, a supportive husband, I believe, that helped. He didn't help her necessarily, but she could do what she needed to do in her environment and feel safe doing it. The expressions of the old trapped responses, all these sorts of things. So yes. So it is a starter point, but again, how can I convey this in a different way? Or maybe I'll just reiterate. If we want deep healing and we know that we have really severe stuff we're working with, we have to start at a starting point. We have to start with the basics. We must. I'm going to read the rest of this. You've seen all of my videos, awesome, and you've read many books, such as Peter Levine's books, and I feel I have a good grasp of the theory, but the practice part needs a lot of work. Yes. I've never been able to afford SBSM, and before I spend the money I have, I want to feel that I'm not just a rehash of the basics. So it comes down to more practice, Natalie. So again, within the biology of stress videos, which are the 5 main training videos in the 21 days, and they're also in Smart Body, Smart Mind. So what you get theory-wise in the 21 days is a portion of the theory in Smart Body, Smart Mind. So you'll get that theory, and then you'll also get the exercises that dive into these pieces that I've been talking about, the sensations, tracking, movement, connecting with the environment, and then putting it all together. The other thing is we have support in this group. So there are 3 of my colleagues who are part of my team, who are all professionals trained in somatic experiencing, also the Feldenkrais, also other somatic healing methodologies. We're in there, they're in there weekly answering questions. So you have support. You have the ability to ask questions that are specific and unique to your experience in the course. So I hope that makes sense. And then the one thing I will just add is, if you can, this is kind of a more side suggestion. See if you can save a little bit here and there. We've had some people who have said that they've put away, $20 a week every couple of weeks, and they've kept it, they've saved it. And then when they do get into Smart Body, Smart Mind, that effort, that investment is just so much stronger, and they're super dedicated because they've done the deed of getting there and being able to pay for the full tuition. The other thing to know is that if you join the 21 days, whether now or 3 weeks from now, we give you a discount of $300 off of Smart Body, Smart Mind's tuition. So even if you get in with the sale this week, where it's just under $200, we'll still give you $300 off the Smart Body, Smart Mind tuition, because again, as I said, 21 days is a curated content from Smart Body, Smart Mind. And actually, it's not 100% true, because I've added extra stuff to the 21 days that is not in Smart Body, Smart Mind, in terms of prompts and emails and a few of the lessons. So there's a lot in the 21 days. That's what I just needed to reiterate. All right, I'm going to get to one more question that was sent in via email, and then I will get back into the chat. So Joan asks, I'm 74 and I grew up with a clinically depressed mother and a disengaged father with some pre-verbal trauma thrown into the mix as well. This is very common, very common. I have clinical depression, anxiety disorder, and mild OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. After decades of essentially unsuccessful talk therapy, last year I decided to try different modalities and explored hypnotherapy, EMDR, NARM, somatic experiencing, EFT, TRE, polyvagal theory, vagus nerve stimulation, etc. You've done a lot. I commend you. I have settled on SE as the main modality and have a therapist who is helping me using SE as our main approach, but I can see that your program would allow me to integrate much of what I have learned up to now. I want to focus on healing my nervous system. Wonderful. So the question is, can this program heal attachment disorder in someone of my great age, is it too late for me to repair those fracture attachments? No, not at all. And the thing that's really important to understand is that the fact, Joan, that you're asking me this question and you've tried all these methodologies and you've settled on SE shows me and everyone here that you are dedicated. You want to heal. And the thing that often happens when we have a situation where we have a depressed mother, a disengaged father basically means he's probably living in a functional freeze based on your age. No doubt these parents of yours lived through a couple of wars, at least one. Maybe they were in the war. He was in the war fighting. Think of all of the people who struggled and lived through those times and never, ever even considered to feel their emotions, to work with the PTSD that they may have gotten from that time. Even if you weren't in the battlefield in the trenches, just being in that energy, food shortages, all these sorts of things. So what occurs when we have this milieu growing up as a child is the world is just not a safe space. And you are not, from what I can read here, you did not get the connection, the attunement. And so a few things. One, I say if you can start the 21 days now, please do, and then begin SBSM next year when we begin again, because the parts that I think will be essential for you, Joan, are in the 21 days and also in SBSM, because we want at this level to get into what we would call working with the stress organs. So I don't know if your SEP is trained in Kathy Kane's work. Not everyone is, but working with touch, gentle touch to help the system basically start to relearn that it can be safe, that it can be settled. And this is where the real deep regulation starts to grow. But it can start to grow, and it clearly can, from beginning with the 21 days. So this is where you'll have to question your SEP or find an SEP that has training in Kathy Kane's work. Many of my colleagues who are part of my team are. So that's something that you could look into as well. So 100% the stuff can be healed no matter how old you are. The key is that you want to and you get the right tools. And you say, fortunately, I've been happily married for 41 years and have a supportive partner. I've just learned about co-regulation and realized I've been doing that instinctively with my husband. Awesome. Next, you have another follow-up question here. Can your program address alcohol use disorder? I've been self-medicating with alcohol, mostly wine, for decades, though I have been high functioning in my alcohol use. I would like to reduce my dependence on alcohol to self-regulate. So again, what this comes down to, Joan, is the basics of regulation and safety. So when we are going to a substance that maybe, and here's the thing, nothing wrong. I have nothing against a glass of wine and that kind of thing. But when it is what we use to calm and soothe, and it's almost done unconsciously, then we know we have to kind of reconsider, what is this? Why am I going to this? And so this comes down to building better internal resources within the system to self-regulate. And that could be all sorts of things. But what we find is that as we gain more regulation at this nervous system level, our choices start to change. We might have a different relationship with that substance. We might still partake in it, but it's with a very different attitude. Or we might go and do something different, like do some movement or go for a walk or do some of the exercises in the 21 days, or listen to some music and just feel our body and see, okay, after this, do I still want or need that thing? So Gabor Mate talks a lot about addiction and various uses of substances. His book is a bit more related to very severe addiction and such. But some addictions can also be very subtle and kind of insidious. And the key is, can you start to feel in the system, what is it that the system is seeking? Is it seeking comfort? Is it seeking soothing? Is it seeking a lift? Because some substances lift us up. Exercise can be an addiction, for example, shopping, gambling. It's not just always substance. It comes down to, what is that physiology craving, and how can you start to learn about why that craving is there and what is maybe missing in your own self-regulatory capacities, and what do you need to learn to bring that self-regulation back, maybe without that external substance. I hope that makes sense. Next part of your question, I have OCD, and in certain circumstances, intrusive, obsessive, and repetitive thoughts will trigger anxiety and sometimes panic. I have tried cognitive behavioral therapy, but it does not work for me. Does Irene's program address OCD, and if so, how? So again, what you write here about OCD and these symptoms, the intrusive thoughts, the obsessive repetitive thoughts, that ties back in with what you mentioned about not having attunement, this clinically depressed mom, a disengaged father. When a little one is not being listened to, isn't being handled properly at that early pre-verbal age, and then of course as we get older, but especially pre-verbal, what they're feeling in their field becomes their reality, and we can't control it. So if I'm just going to make this up, but like, let's just say mother is like this, up and down, one day happy and loving, and then the next day is just vile and violent and abusive, emotionally, verbally, physically. And then you have this other person, i.e. the father, who's seeing this and is not doing anything to protect you. That little physiology starts to realize that they have no control over what's going on, especially when you're really young. You can't pull them apart. You can't exit, you can't flee, you can't fight with them, you can't reason with them, because you might not have that skill on. And usually kids don't have success when there's that kind of toxicity. And so the physiology is basically unsafe. It comes down to just, this is a dangerous place. I can't control anything. So one of the things that a system can sometimes do is we find ways to control our habits, our behaviors. And obsessive compulsive disorder is one way that a person can, in some ways, control certain things. The thoughts looping, and being obsessive is one reason. Is it's an internalization of the survival stress that is trapped inside. So if we don't know how to interpret the chaos and the insanity and the intensity that's inside, and we don't know how to track and move that out in a physiological way, or via movement or sound or emotion or seeking support, self-regulation, all these things, it stays trapped, and then we ruminate. It's like there's no exit. Everything is just trapped inside. And so this is why sometimes people will get these intrusive qualities. It is the system turning in on itself. Just like depression, for example, is internalized. One way of looking at it is it's internalized anger. We couldn't fight, we couldn't flee, we couldn't hit, we couldn't run when we were having a bad, scary thing happen to us, or being in an environment that was bad and scary and we had no control over. So we turn it into ourselves. And that energy, that ball of fight, flight energy is so big, to keep it inside wears us out. And then we have to depress it. We go into the shutdown, right? So to answer the direct question, does Irene's program address OCD? It does, but we're not saying, okay, now we're going to work with your OCD, or now we're going to work with your anxiety, or now we're going to work with your depression, or now we're going to work with your chronic pain. it's a very different way of looking at it, which I know many of us haven't been taught that way. It's like I have a sickness, I get a pill. I have a problem, I get it fixed. So again, all roads lead to regulation of the autonomic nervous system and getting these survival. It's really about getting these stored survival responses up and out of our system so that we're not trapping them inside, because when they're trapped inside, that's what creates the dysregulation. And then depending on the specific type of environment we we're in, etc., that then creates these conditions. Remember what I said a little while ago about the baby, the cub, right? And how animals in the wild just have the same upbringing no matter what, right? Cub in Canada is going to be treated the same way as a cub in Montana, the States, United States, right? Exactly the same. We can pretty much guarantee that. But because humans are just so complex and we have this diversity in how we were brought up, this creates all sorts of interesting byproducts of how we cope and how we manage that which was not good for us. And so in many ways, we could say the antidote is the antidote to this suffering, to this dysregulation, is offer the system what it never got. And that's what these courses are designed to do. All right, let's go back to this chat box. Let me have a little more liquid. Lorinda asks, is it possible to become someone who is permanently stuck, unable to get free from my protective self? Is it possible to be someone who is permanently stuck, unable to get free? Yeah, 100%. This is how most of humanity is living, right? We're living, many are living in a permanently, we would call it functionally frozen state. I was living like this up until just 12, 14 years ago. And I would say that the bulk of humanity is in some kind of permanently stuck survival state. Not everyone, of course. We're in a very different environment here. My colleagues, not so much. The people in my courses, not so much. But as I said, society has created many, many, many humans that are not living in a way that is not survival based. I haven't met anybody that hasn't been living in some kind of survival state since childhood, since teenagehood, since, it's just not, we haven't gotten out of that yet. This is why it's super important, despite all the fear and crazies in the world, we have to work on getting our individual system out of survival. Because the more we get pulled into more fight and flight and freeze and fear, we just perpetuate this survival response that has been with us since really the beginning of time in many ways. Not completely, but you guys get it. So, the flip side to this is, Lorinda, we want to get out of this permanently stuck state so that we can not be living in a survival state. The reason why is when we live permanently in a survival state, it makes us sick. The system cannot function well for long periods of time in this trapped, intense autonomic dysregulation. Hey, Becky, thanks for your comment. You're a SBSM alum. I'll just read it for those that might not see your comment. You said, I started with Smart Body, Smart Mind, and I had a considerable amount of learning in multiple options. I've started the second year. There is enough info in the program for years. Yes, I think a lot of people, when they see the tuition price of Smart Body, Smart Mind, it's just under $2,000 US. There's like this shock. But we have to remember, for many of us, we've been putting out money, therapies, supplements for decades to no avail. And so when you understand the complexity and the depth that is in, say, Smart Body, Smart Mind, it is it will last you years and years of healing and learning. And we have Elam going back right now who are watching the basic videos again going, wow, I didn't understand it like that last year or 2 years ago. And likewise with the 21-day nervous system tune-up program, when it goes on sale tomorrow and on Thursday, it's just under $200 US. Very hard to get 3 years of therapy with $200 US. It's impossible. Unless, of course, you live somewhere where everything is free. But I haven't come across that country yet where this level of healing is provided by government assistance. It just isn't. Just like food. We have to pay for food. We have to pay for our heat. This is something that is just out of pocket at this current time. Pixie Chick 55, I like that name, has a couple questions. So when I relax and subdue my system, I get depressed because I associate that state with being sick and unable to function. Would this program be able to help me given that? And then your follow-up is, how does one establish safety when the threat is coming from the inside of the body? In other words, the call is coming from the inside of the house. That's a good analogy. So yes, so what you're explaining here is, it's a more complex concept, but in our world of somatic experiencing, this thing that you said where when you relax and calm, you get depressed because you associate with getting sick. There's what's called a coupling dynamic there, where the system doesn't know how to differentiate and discern one state from another. And so it's not, we don't work at saying, okay, I want you to not think that you're in this state. As I mentioned a second ago when I was answering Joan's question about OCD and such, we're not trying to not make you associate it. We're teaching you how to listen to your physiology at its truest biological sense. And then from that, you start to discern the subtleties through how we teach you how to orient, how to track, how to touch, how to make some expression. There's some expression in the 21 days. And then over time, again, not a quick fix, doing this, learning this new language, your system will start to better know, I'm really sick, or this is me thinking I am because I'm in a different physiological state. And so if you have had these chronic conditions, fatigue that you are writing here about, that is a result of, and it could be some other things like environmental toxins and food and that, but many people have cleared all that stuff out of their bodies and they're still unwell, and they haven't addressed the trauma, the dysregulation, the early elements that said this isn't safe, which then leads me to your second question. How do we establish safety when the threat is coming from the inside? This comes back to the difference I mentioned about how the 21 days is a starter program. We're not going to get into working with pre-verbal trauma and developmental trauma, but when our system is saying that the threat is internal, that's a pretty clear indication that for whatever reason, when you were little growing up or in utero, the messages that your system was getting was everything is dangerous, nothing is to be trusted, and we're all going to die. That's just kind of the common script. That can be from the environment being unsafe and you feeling it from your primary caregivers. It can be a very common one that people don't relate to because we just don't talk about it. If someone had a near-death experience when they were born or when they were infants, if they had an umbilical cord wrapped around their neck, if there was a poison, if they were given something that their system didn't react to well, the system will have an immune response that says danger is inside, this isn't good, and then it'll fight against that. If an infant was needing to go into surgeries really young, that will prime the system to be oversensitized to danger is happening. Being born premature, being in an incubator, not being connected. And I know it's better now, but for those of us that are older, and I'm not totally old, but, in our 40s, 30s, even, we probably weren't in one of those good hospitals where someone was always with us, giving us skin to skin contact. We were probably left to just be there. And at that little level, there's no conscious verbal understanding of what's going on. No memories are being made that are what's called declarative. So all the memories are called procedural, which become embedded in the cells. And the message is, I'm going to die. This isn't safe. So that's how that works. How we establish safety is exactly what I've been talking about. We have to relearn the language of our system. The 21 days will give you these basic steps, understandings, language, practices, and then when the time comes next year for enrollment again into Smart Body, Smart Mind, please get into that, or seek out a somatic experiencing practitioner that is trained well in Kathy Kane's work, where you're working with the stress organs. So I teach you guys how to work with the stress organs, which are the kidneys, the adrenals, the gut, the brainstem, the viscera. There's other things, but I won't get into it right now, because those are the tissues and organ systems and structures that went into protection mode because something was wrong. And they get frozen, they get rigid, but they also can collapse. And this is where the depressed state, the chronic fatigue, the collapse, the defeat kind of physiology, energy gets into the tissues and the system just kind of stops working properly. I hope that answers your question. That was a very long way of answering it. It's very hard to answer these questions in quick, this is the answer, because you need context to understand. Lorinda, no. So this is about the staying stuck. The goal of this work is to get unstuck. That's a quotable right there. The goal of this work is to get unstuck. It is to get out of our freeze responses. And to do that, we have to provide listening and safety. We have to start to mobilize our fight and flight. This is something that's just not understood in a lot of other kind of popular press worlds that talk about the vagus nerve and toning the vagus nerve and all these things that are more biohacked. They leave out this importance of cultivating safety internally so that the system can start to naturally unfold and release the stored fight flight responses. If we don't get these fight flight responses out, we stay stuck. So there's this lifting of the brake, of the freeze that has to occur. But in conjunction with that is this need to mobilize the fight flight. And this is why a lot of people think that they're doing something wrong when they start this work, is they start to feel what might be called anxiety or panic or a fast heart rate or something that doesn't make any sense. And it is the old survival response, the adrenalized response that never was felt and expressed and completed, that is stored in the system and it's coming out. This explains, and again, granted, you don't have a heart condition, you know, your electrolytes are all imbalanced, all these things that are important for a healthy electrocardiogram of the heart and these things to be working. But let's just say all of that is checked off. And I've heard so many students who are like, I keep getting these palpitations, I keep getting these heart bursts of something that don't make any sense. Everything is, all my bloods are good, everything is good. What is this? It is stored, trapped survival stress finally exiting the body. And so it's so important to understand that, because if we don't understand it, what typically occurs in our current world without this knowledge is we go and they put us on a medication to block the heart from beating like that. And then we just drive that back inside. And then those medications, typically it's a beta blocker or something like that, it then causes more side effects. And then we're into this spiral of just not knowing how to work with that. Hey there, Nia. Thanks for your comment. Your comment reads, you embody so much wisdom, Irene. Your work is life-saving. Wishing to join SPSM next year. Awesome. Just doing my job. That's what I'm trained for. Lisa says, I'm just starting SPSM after trying last year and quitting in the first week. I was scared and now I'm ready, I think. Thank you for your honesty. I'm glad you're back. Stick with it. And just remember, this is really important. The fear, the scaredness is old, right? It's old stuff. And we're going to feel scared. There's going to be these, because we're working with trauma, right? We're working with stored trauma. So of course we're going to be fucking scared. It's going to come out. And the key is that we realize this is that thing that I've been storing so long. And now, ask questions of my team, like get in there, be involved, get in and use your investment. That's all I can say. Use it. Great commentary there, Becky. You said, I tell people this program is like physical therapy for the nervous system. It builds it like a muscle over time. The muscle is strengthened in a way that it can function in a healthy way. Yes. And the thing to understand, just like exercise, just like eating well, you guys all know that you can't just do that for one day and then stop for the rest of your life. The human system needs to move daily. It needs to keep muscle mass. We need to have water and nutrients and micronutrients and minerals and the things, sunlight, all the things. We need these things daily. We're organic beings. We're like a plant. You can't not water a plant for months and it'll die, right? It needs sunlight, all these things. We forget that our human system and the nervous system also needs this care. It is not, again, I come back, it's not a quick fix. It's this cultivation, this tending and healing and restoring it back to probably the level that it never even had. The cool thing with the human system is because we have this higher brain, it can get us into trouble because it can shut us down and it can avoid things and it can sabotage ourselves. But it can also turn the other way. It's kind of this neutral entity in that it can also provide us with the tools and the initiative to make things different, to change things. And so know that for all of you here whom have maybe started one of my courses and you know that you just didn't get to it, that's okay, but just go back in. There's this sickness that we have of needing to perfect things. And that comes from our school systems that have basically given us very strict parameters. And if you don't do this, you fail. If you do this, you pass. We've been graded. I think for some instances in some educational areas, that is very important. But for this work, not important. The key is that you're doing something, you're showing up, you're asking for help, you're engaging, and you're working on yourself. So, hey, Gloria, I'm going to read your comment and I think I might call it for the day. We've just passed the hour. Gloria says, I started the 21-day in December of 2019. And then I followed up with Smart Body, Smart Mind in March of 2020. And Becky is right. As I followed the program, one day I noticed the ruminations had evaporated. Might have to ask you if I can quote you on that, Gloria. That's a great testament to the work. It's true. When we haven't had a regulated nervous system, it's nearly impossible to visualize and imagine what it is like to not have these ruminations. This is where visualization doesn't work often, is that if we didn't have the wires from the beginning, we have to connect them back, right? A lot of people talk about rewiring. And for some of us, the wires never got wired. They just never got zoomed together. And so what a great way to heal is to actually bring these wires back together and connect them and feel the difference when that starts to occur. So I'm going to end for today, you guys. So again, I'm Irene, and this is a Q&A that we've done just to chat about, obviously, this work as a whole, but also give you the heads up. I wanted to give you guys lots of time to let you know that the 21-day nervous system tune-up course is on sale tomorrow, which is the 16th of March and the 17th of March for 2 days only. You might be watching this tomorrow. You might be watching this next year. So whatever you do, find a way to start. Just go to the site tomorrow and the discount will be applied immediately. You do not need a coupon code. It's self-study. It's a course website. You get a username, a password. All the content is yours. You work through it at your own pace. You don't have to get through it in 21 days. You take your time. You ask questions. Use your investment. My team want to answer your questions in there. And then if you have any other follow-up questions that are not answered on this site, so go to the 21-day nervous system tune-up registration and information page. There's some FAQs there. It outlines everything that you get. If you're still wondering about something, just email us, support@irenelyon.com, and we'll get back to you. Thank you, Diana, for posting all the links. I will sign off for now, and we'll see you guys later. Bye for now.